I had the privilege of sitting down with Lakia Holmes as we talked about her journey to motherhood. If you are considering or have been through the IVF journey, if you know someone and want to be a better support system to somebody going through the IVF journey, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Join us for this episode as we take a vulnerable and real walk through the struggles and joys of becoming a single mom through IVF. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am so excited to be joined today by Lakia Holmes. Welcome to the show, Lakia.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So Lakia and I have had such an awesome set of screening call and post recording. We just had to hit record and start getting all of this juicy stuff that we've been talking about. Lakia, if you could share with the viewers who you are and what you do.
Hey, so yeah, I am a TV producer by day, single parent by choice. I gave birth almost a year ago to a beautiful baby girl named Isla. She just turned 11 months. So that's just crazy to think that I've been a parent now for almost a year. So those are like the two biggest things. And now I'm also starting to pivot and I'm launching my own business and I'm starting a fertility coaching program. So that's like my other baby right now. So those are my three pillars that make me right now at this point in my life.
Well, and in our conversation before we hit record, in both of the calls that we've had so far, we were talking about Lakia's journey to parenthood. And it is one that isn't talked about nearly enough. And she graciously agreed to come onto the show and share her story. So tell us a little bit about how you became a mom.
Where do I begin, Adrienne? I had always had the desire to be a parent. I always knew from an early age I wanted to be a mom. But when you are young, and I always wanted to do it the quote unquote right way, and let's find a partner, get married, build the dream house, build the dream family, do everything in a particular order. So for a while, I spent a lot of time focusing on my career. So I went to undergrad, went to grad school, got my master's in sports management, started my career in sports television production. And so it's odd hours, working late at night, working on weekends, working on holidays, doing a lot of travel. So I really spent a lot of time focusing on my career, and I would date and stuff, but everything was career focused and wanting to make sure I had like enough money in the bank and all of those things. Wanted to check off all those career milestones and stuff. So the calendar keeps going, and I was getting older and older, and my career really started finally taking off and getting to a place where I felt comfortable enough. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe now is the time to start really thinking about having children. But I live in New York, and so dating in New York City is not the easiest. So again, the calendar keeps turning. And I became full-time at my job. I was 37, getting ready to turn 38. And becoming full-time at my company, I finally became eligible for like full health benefits. So my company offers fertility coverage, which was great. So I was like, okay, I hear a lot about egg freezing. So let me freeze my eggs. Let me see what that's about and just have that as insurance. And now leading up to this time, I had started noticing some changes with my cycle that was a little concerning, but maybe didn't necessarily raise the alarm bells that maybe it should have for me. So I started the process in 2021 of just looking into egg freezing, talked to my GYN, got some recommendations about fertility clinics to go to. So I went to a clinic, we started the process of testing, and that's when I found out that my fallopian tubes were blocked. And so that I would only have about a 2% chance of getting pregnant naturally. So the doctor said, if you want to have a baby, IVF is going to be your best option and your safest option. And so that was a punch to the gut because that's not what I was expecting at all. I was just thinking, well, I'm just going to put these eggs in the freezer. They'll be there, but I'm still going to conceive naturally. I'm going to meet someone. And so it was a real reality check for me. And so coming out of that appointment with the doctor, I just remember driving home and just kind of this complete fog as to the news I just received and just kind of completely changed everything for me. So I got home and I spent the next couple of days just thinking about the diagnosis, what it meant for me, and really coming to terms with you waited so long to have a baby and now your body's working against you. What are you waiting for? Life is not going to be perfect. You're never going to have enough money in the bank that you feel that you need to have. And, what if you never meet that dream partner? I realized that I'll have plenty of time to meet a partner, but my body does not have that same type of time when it comes to having a baby. So I said, you know what, if I'm going to have to go through IVF anyway, why not I just go get donor sperm and just do it on my own, just take control of my fertility and just do it on my terms. And so that's how I just came to the decision to go the single mom by choice route.
Ooh, that's such a powerful story. I want to thank you for the vulnerability and sharing that story with us because there's a lot to unpack there. I had a very similar experience at a reproductive endocrinologist's office, and I totally resonate with that whole feeling like you're in a fog. And so many of us feel that way. It's like we find out either that there is something that isn't working quite right, or there's no answer to why something isn't working quite right. And you're like, but now what? Like that now what question is scary and it's frustrating, and you feel the pressure of that biological clock like gonging. Yeah. It's so hard to make those decisions.
And it's funny because my mom had just turned 21 when she had me. And it was funny because they're always ready to become grandparents. So sometimes my mom would say things like, you don't need to be married to have a baby. And I would just be like, no, but that's the way I want to do it. And she'll be like, well, when I was your age, you were such and such years old. Now, mind you, my grandma had my mom when she had just turned like 42. And this was back in the 60s when my grandma had my mom. My mom was born in 1962. My grandma was 42 years old.
Wow.
So it's just funny how like life works. But my grandma was a single mom. My mom was a single mom. And so in my mind, I was trying to kind of do the opposite, but life has a way of lifing, and
It does.
life be life. And so it's just kind of interesting. That's kind of how things panned out for me.
So you made this choice to become a mom and to move forward with IVF. How did that process feel for you?
It was difficult because I didn't know what to expect going in. The funny thing is when I realized, okay, well, I'm going to have to do IVF, it's okay. First of all, how expensive is this going to be? I'm going to have to give myself needles. Like, I don't like getting blood drawn. Like, my mom would practically still be sitting in my lap at 25 for me to get like shots and stuff. And now I have to give myself multiple shots. And there was so much about the process that I didn't know. And I didn't know anyone, or at least I didn't think I knew anyone that was going through the process. And that's the thing, is because I didn't know anyone personally who had been through the process to sit down and talk to and be like, what do I do to know what to expect and stuff. But the funny thing is I was going through the process and I was talking to more people about it, that there were people in my orbit who had gone through the process, were currently going through the process, but they just didn't really openly talk about it like that. They were just kind of suffered in silence with infertility and kind of kept their journey close to the vest. And so as I was diving more and more into it, as I started my journey, it's funny how many people, men, women, families, are going through infertility, but you just don't necessarily know about it. It's more common than you would think or expect. So as I started going through the process, it was a lot of learning. It's very overwhelming because I'm coming to terms with what my body was going through and the hurdles that I'd have to overcome. And aside from the physical aspect of it, the mental that it was taking on me was a lot. And just this uncharted territory, because now not only am I going through IVF, but now I have to go through the process of finding a donor. And that's a whole nother set of challenges in and of itself. And so there was just a lot that was going on at one time that was very overwhelming, and a lot of anxiety and stress while still trying to show up for work on a day-to-day basis and doing my job at a consistent level, still having to travel, still having to do all these things. So there's a lot on my plate. And again, for someone who wasn't expecting to have to go through that at all, it's a lot to take in at one time.
It is a lot. There's a lot of parts of that I want to unpack too. I see this in my clinic all the time. People who are starting their IVF journeys for a wide variety of reasons. Maybe it's because, like, I see this a lot in the Jewish community, that there are some certain genetic markers that are carried in those bloodlines. And so there are quite a few families that end up going the route of IVF because they have to essentially screen so that their children don't end up with some of those genetic markers, or that both parents aren't contributing that genetic marker so that the child has health issues. People do it as a choice. People do it for infertility. People do it for such a long list of reasons, but the process is rigorous. And because there is, I don't want to use the word stigma, but there's just enough around this feeling of this is for infertility that I almost feel like some people feel shame or guilt around talking about the fact that they are pursuing parenthood through a technological means rather than naturally. Was that your experience?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it'd be funny because by the time I did my first egg retrieval in 2021, I was just about to turn 38. a lot of my friends and family, they had kids in their 20s, early 30s. So everybody's looking at me like, hey, when are you going to have your baby? Blah, blah, blah. And so it was like everyone was expecting me to be like fertile myrtle or something. And so going through and kind of explaining to them the IVF process, they're just, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, what? And then you factor in, oh, yeah, and I'm using donor sperm to do it, and that just opens up a whole nother can of worms. So I felt a stigma. I felt alone, and I felt judgment in a lot of ways, deciding to do it myself. I posted something on social media once about it, and this was after my daughter was born. And someone called me selfish and said, for bringing a baby into the world without a father just to fill a void in my life.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That had to hurt.
Yeah. And that's some of the stuff that you're up against when deciding, and I'm not going to get emotional about it, because they don't understand. And I'd always wanted to be a mom. I knew that there was a spirit that was out there for me to love on and to cherish and help develop and support, and etc. Me deciding to do what I did, I took a lot of time to think about that. It wasn't an easy decision to make. It's probably one of the most selfless things I feel like I've done. But that's kind of what you're up against when you're going through the process. And so it was eye-opening to hear some of the critiques, the criticism, the just uneducated thoughts and stuff, especially from social media trolls. And when you factor in just how IVF just really isn't talked about a whole lot, and that just kind of adds to the lack of understanding. It's not an easy process to go through. It's hard. It is taxing. I would have loved to create a baby the good old-fashioned way. It's been a hell of a lot more fun, okay, than having to give myself multiple injections for weeks at a time and being bloated and feeling like a basketball. Like, it's hard work. It's not a walk in the park. You have to have a certain type of mindset going into the process to be able to push yourself to go through and get to the other side. And people don't understand that. And it's frustrating. But at the end of the day, I know that Isla is not here to fill a void in my life. She's here for a reason. She was meant to be here. I was meant to be her mom. And so that's why it's so important to me to talk about infertility and the process to help shed those stigmas, to help bring awareness to it, that parenthood comes in many different ways and forms and shapes and sizes, whatever, that we have to kind of get out of this traditional mentality.
I love that. Now, do you all see why I brought Lakia on the show? Like, her story is so important because IVF is hard. It's hard when you're going through it, whether you have a partner or not. It's physically grueling. The hormones make you feel like a crazy person and a bloated person, and nothing fits. And when you're doing that all in a vacuum, because you don't know if there's anybody in your circle that you can talk to, who did you use for support as you went through this process?
I'm so grateful because, so someone that I was working with, I didn't know at the time, but she was going through IVF.
Oh, wow.
To have a baby, her and her husband. They had been through multiple rounds of IVF. And I don't even remember how it came up in conversation that she was going through IVF. I probably said something, and she was like, oh, I've gone through IVF too. And I was like, wait, what? We've been working together now for over a year. How did I not know about this? Her name was Sarah, and she was a huge resource to me because I finally knew someone that had gone through the process that I could talk to, who would be like, okay, this is what to expect at this point, so on and so forth. Luckily, also, I have an amazing community of friends and family who would support me. I remember my very first egg retrieval cycle. So I started the process of doing the injections. Remember, I hate giving myself needles. I hate needles. The thought of having to give myself injections was insane to me. But I had a friend, Colleen, who was a single mom. She didn't go through IVF or anything. In fact, her story's hilarious. She was pregnant. She didn't even know she was pregnant. But she was a single parent. And so she would get on FaceTime with me every night at 7 o'clock when it was time for me to give myself my injection. She'd be on FaceTime with me and be on there with me while I gave myself the injections. And she would cheer me on. And every call we'd get on, she'd be like, the shot has a purpose. The shot has a purpose. The shot has a purpose. As I'm like, kind of like ramping myself up to give myself the shot. And so then I'd give myself the injection. She'd be like, yeah, you did it. And then give myself the net. And like, the shot has a purpose. So that was like our thing. So that was huge, just having that network support like that to people that I can call on, FaceTime, text, whatever, to just talk through the process, especially once those hormones started kicking in, because boy, let me tell you, okay, I remember, I think it was maybe like day 4 of my first retrieval cycle. My stomach is swollen like no other. The needle wouldn't go in, and it was a timed injection, so that way my body wouldn't release the egg. And so it was important for me to take it at this particular time.
Yep.
The needle just would not go in. The needle would not go in. My stomach was so hard. And I'm already a hormonal mess because I've been on these meds already for 3 days. And I'm like, the needle's not going in. The needle's not going in. I walked around the corner to CVS, and I was like, well, maybe I can get like the pharmacist to give me the injection because it's not working. So I go to CVS, and they're like, we can't do that, ma'am. Sorry. They can only inject you with our medicines here. I'm standing at the counter at CVS, bawling, crying, a mess. I walk back to my apartment, and I call Colleen, and I am crying the hardest I've ever cried. I was like, I can't do this. What am I doing? Like, just the hormones are just like crazy. I say all that to say it's like you have to have a great group of people around you during those moments to just be able to call on the phone and just talk to, and just to have them encourage you and just push you, motivate you, because it's tough. Again, the mental toll that the process takes is tremendous. So I'm so grateful and blessed that I had a great group of people, friends, family, and I had a great team of doctors and support team at RMA of New Jersey, as well as through Progeny, which is the fertility benefits company. They set you up with patient care advocates. So there would be times I'd be on the phone with my patient care advocate for 2 hours, either like crying or just going through just like a tailspin, and they could just be either on the phone or emailing me. So to anyone that's going through the process, have a great support team around you, because they are going to be so important during those moments where you just feel like you just can't do it anymore. When you're just over it and tired and exhausted, You're going to need a great group of people to just push you and motivate you and get you across the finish line.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad that you had that network because it's hard. And it still surprises me. I've been doing this work for almost a decade, and it still surprises me the number of people that feel like they're doing this by themselves. Even whether they're doing this with a partner or not, it's like either them and their partner, or they're going through it by themselves. And like they don't really have that kind of network that you're talking about. And the number one thing that I hear from people around the mental health side of this is the hormones make you feel crazy and you feel like you're on an island doing this by yourself.
Yeah. And that was the other thing. I have a great therapist. From the moment I found out that I was going to have to do IVF, I had recently started therapy. So a good chunk of my time in therapy was spent wrapping my mind around the diagnosis and all the steps. So that was also huge for me because it was helping me unpack a lot of childhood trauma issues and stuff like that, to just also have me be in as healthy a mental space as possible through the process. So that was huge as well, because it really takes a toll and you don't understand it until you go through it, because you're dealing with the hormones. You have the bills coming in. You're looking at the cost of these medicines and you're like, wait, this is for one medication? Excuse me? So there's that weight and that anxiety, especially if you don't have fertility coverage. So you're paying completely out of pocket for it. Luckily, I'm so grateful that my company had fertility coverage. It was still expensive, but nowhere near the cost that it could have been had I not. So you're dealing with those stressors. Again, you're still trying to show up to your job every day. You're getting up 4, 5, 6 a.m. to go to these early morning doctor's appointments. I'd be driving to the clinic every other day. The sun isn't even out yet, to do early morning monitoring and stuff. You feel like a pincushion because between giving yourself the injections and you're going in for monitoring, they're taking multiple vials of blood. They're shoving ultrasound things up you to take images of your uterus and your ovaries and everything. It's such an invasive process.
It really is.
It's like crazy. And again, I had no idea what to expect. I'm going through it in the process. I'm learning all these things in real time. So it's a lot. So, again, I stress the importance of having a great support system around you, because it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to process. And sometimes you just need to vent. You just need to have someone to talk to help you process certain things. So my village was everything. And especially now having the baby, even more important now. I've gained a testimony of it takes a village to raise a child. And that's started from before I even got pregnant.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. We all need a village, regardless of how we conceive and how we have our babies. We all need a village, and that's so important. So you went through this process, you had your egg retrieval. It sounds like from the way you worded it, you had more than one.
Yeah, I had 3 egg retrievals total.
All right. So that is a huge process for anyone who hasn't been through it. Egg retrievals are a huge process. Then they put the sperm and the egg in a petri dish and they wait to see if the magic's going to happen. So then you have to wait to see if embryos are going to come out of all of that. So there's more waiting.
Yeah. And so for me, I did my first retrieval October 2021. Shortly thereafter, I started the process of trying to find a donor, and finding a donor was so incredibly stressful. I ended up taking 2022 off. I had been on the waiting list for 6, 7, 8 months for a donor, ended up not being able to get that donor. It was just a lot. So I took 2022 off because I just wanted to focus on just kind of getting my mental space back, taking some time for myself, just kind of gaining some clarity. I went on like my first real vacation. I just needed a reset. So 2022 was spent doing a full reset, and then I jumped back into it 2023. And soon after I jumped back into the process, I found my donor by the grace of God. He was like the perfect donor. So I found him, I want to say like February, March 2023. And then I went and did 2 more egg retrievals. So that very first egg retrieval in 2021, I decided to not fertilize those eggs. I kept those eggs unfertilized in case I meet someone in the future and we decide to have a baby together. The subsequent 2 egg retrievals were what I went and made embryos with. And so there's that anxiety of, okay, so we've retrieved this number of eggs. Okay, out of this number of eggs, these are good, healthy, and strong enough to be fertilized. Okay, it's just a numbers game. It's an odds game. So out of the second and third egg retrieval, I ended up with 4 embryos, 2 girls and 2 boys. Yeah. So I was extremely lucky because some people don't end up with a single viable embryo. And again, another mental component is taking the time to acknowledge all of the possibilities that could come from the process, preparing yourself for any and all possible outcomes. So I was lucky that I had 4 embryos. They asked me, do you want to implant boy or a girl? And I said, I didn't want to choose. I said, whatever the strongest one is, go with that. And luckily, I'm so grateful, I got pregnant on the first transfer.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So you made several really important points that I want people to note. Even though you are using assisted reproductive technology, you are not guaranteed an embryo.
No.
And you're not guaranteed success from that embryo.
No.
I want people to hear that part, because that is one of the hardest parts. You've made this financial investment, you've made this mental investment, you've made this energetic investment. You are like at the finish line and you're like, we're going to do the transfer. And there are a lot of families that don't have the successful outcomes that you did.
No.
So to have internet trolls say nasty things, like they're clearly not coming from an informed public who either knows anything about IVF or has been through this journey, because every time there's a success, it's a major gift.
Yeah. I remember early on in the process, because I'm a very type A person. I am a planner. I have plan A, B, C, D, E. So I remember early on in the process thinking to myself, okay, what's my limit going to be? If we do X number of embryo transfers and it doesn't work out, what's the number I'm going to allot myself before I start to think about potentially surrogacy? What's my breaking point at each phase of the journey? Because I knew I had to be realistic with the outcomes, the scenarios that could come up. And so, again, I feel like it all comes back to that mindset and the mental aspect of it, because you have to have some really honest conversations with yourself. If you're part of a couple, have conversations with your partner and being like, okay, when do we say we've done enough? What is that line for us? And it breaks my heart to see families go through so much and not have a baby on the other side of it all. Like, breaks my heart. And when I found out I was pregnant, and again, pregnant off of the first transfer, I was so grateful. I was so thankful. But part of me was like, why me? And why not so-and-so? And I'm so grateful and so blessed to have Isla. But I also know that if I decide that I want to try for number 2, could be a completely different outcome. And that's the realities of it. And that's hard because you're thinking of the risks. Of course, by the time I got pregnant, I was 40. So I'm 40 years old, Black woman, IVF pregnancy. I had high blood pressure. I was just checking off all the high risk boxes. So there was even no guarantee once I was pregnant that I would carry full term. So it's not easy. It's a lot just being a pregnant Black woman. And you factor in IVF on top of that and my age. So I just felt like every appointment I was going in with some sort of anxiety from the moment we did the embryo transfer and going into those appointments still with the fertility clinic and then hitting those milestones and then being released to my OB. And still every doctor's appointment, it's everything okay? I had a little bit of a scare while I was pregnant. And just the flood of emotions and anxiety and everything. It's a lot. You're putting yourself through so much to bring life into the world. And the fact that we live in the United States of America and the mortality rates are where they are.
Yeah.
I just was watching the news the other day, and a woman in California had given birth via C-section. She was a nurse. And she passed away a day or two after having it. And she was young, healthy.
Yeah.
People want to say I just brought a baby into the world to fill a void in my life. Do you know what I went through? The risks I took?
So
No.
how did that affect your birthing experience?
Well, my birth plan, I had my birth plan.
Of course you did. You have plans, man.
I had my whole birth plan. I said I'm going to be natural. I put my body through enough to create the baby. I'm going to go through as natural birth as possible. I'm going to do a water bath. I'm going to do all this. Can we swear on this podcast? Because
hell yeah,
that shit just completely went out the window.
And now a break from our conversation for a partnership message. You've been told to hustle, grind, wake up early, and do more. But here's the truth. Rest is the most productive thing you can do. And the right kind of rest starts with Sia Silk Sleep Mask, your new sleep sanctuary. I've tried so many sleep masks, and I thought I just had to deal with the discomfort of slipping straps and light still getting through. But then I found this one, and I'm never going back. Made of 100% mulberry silk, it's the only mask that creates total blackout with its comfortable oversized eye cups that don't smush my lashes while feeling weightless on my face. My sleep, next level. This isn't just a sleep mask, it's an investment in your nervous system. Sia Silk is a women-owned small business committed to high quality and sustainable luxury. Check out the show notes for the link to grab yours and rest like you mean it. And now, back to the show.
So what happened was, Isla was very cozy and comfortable. She did not want to come out.
Oh, my son was.
I was 39 weeks and 4 days. And I had not dilated at all. And it was funny because my OB was a Black woman. I was grateful I was able to find a Black OB. And all of the high risk factors and stuff.
Right.
So I go in for my appointment 39 weeks and still hadn't dilated. She was like, I want you to go to the hospital tonight. We're inducing. I said, what? Excuse me? Again, plan I had
Out the window. Yep.
out the window. And she was
Think
like,
about birth is that way though.
and she was like, she said, listen, I wanted to induce you at 37 weeks, but I knew that's not what you wanted. I let you rock. But now, no, I want you in the hospital at 5 p.m. And so I had a conversation with my doula, and my doula was like, you have your birth plan, like you want to do this a certain way, like you still have a few days until your due date, maybe something will happen then, you don't have to, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what, let's just go, let's just do this. And ended up being glad I did. I mean, I spoke to my doctor again, I spoke to like ultrasound techs and nurses at the office, and they were like, listen, like, you don't know what can happen between now and your due date 3 days from now. Things can quickly change, and you don't want to take the risk. You're already enough of a high risk. So just go, just trust the doctor. She's telling you this for your own good. And I was like, okay, let's just go, let's do it. My doula, I think, was a little, not upset, but she was like, she knew how important my plan was to me, but so I went into the hospital, it was a Wednesday night, ended up being in labor all Wednesday night, Thursday. Isla still did not want to come out. She was cozy. She was Beyonce cozy. Okay. They were giving me all these medications to help open up my cervix and stuff. And it was a very long, drawn out process. And I got to a point where I was exhausted. Like, I went into the hospital, it was 8 p.m. Wednesday. They gave me the first medication. By 7 a.m. Thursday, I was exhausted and there hadn't really been any movement. And I was like, give me the epidural. I was like, I'm trying to be strong. I was like, I'm exhausted. I don't know how much longer this is going to be. Just give me the epidural so that way I can just try to rest. And so another part of the birth plan, that unmedicated aspect of that, I was like, well, we've already induced. So let's just go ahead and get the epidural. So yeah, so went and got the epidural, and then she still did not want to come out. Had to put a balloon in and do all this stuff. And so lucky I ended up not having to have a C-section. It was like 36 hours of labor. Yeah, so I was in labor all day Thursday, and then she was born shortly after 1 a.m. Okay, so that's a long time, and I was not prepared for that, but I was like, I like it too much in here. And in hindsight, I'm glad that I went to it, because then my doctor ended up having to break my water, and there was meconium.
Oh, wow. Yep.
So had I decided to wait, who knows what could have happened. So I'm glad that I went ahead and trusted my instincts and just listened to my doctor, who I'm so glad I was able to trust, and just went ahead and went through with induction, because it could have been a completely different outcome had I waited another day or two, let alone 3, for my due date.
How long were you in the hospital for?
So I went into the hospital Wednesday, gave birth Friday, and came home on Mother's Day, Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my due date was the day before Mother's Day. And I had her 2 days before Mother's Day. So I went home from the hospital on Mother's Day. So it was like the best Mother's Day gift ever.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So when you got home, was your village the one that came and supported you as you were in that healing process at the beginning?
Yes. My aunt took some time off from work, stayed with me. A friend of mine came for the second weekend that we were home. My friend came, stayed the weekend, cooked for me. I had friends that came over that brought freezer meals and stuff like that. It was amazing, the amount of love and support that came my way, especially also because I ended up having horrible postpartum depression, really bad.
Okay.
And I remember Isla was about a week and a half old, and I just had a mental breakdown. We had gone outside to the park. It was a horrible time. She was crying from the moment I put her in her car seat. I was sleep deprived. At this point, like, everybody's at work and stuff. People are still coming, but everybody's at work during the day. So during the day, it's just me and the baby. And that day was just rough. Like, I was worried that she wasn't getting enough milk because she just seemed like she just wanted to just latch all the time. And I'm like, are you not getting any milk? Like, why are you just so hungry? So I felt like I wasn't producing. So then I tried to give her a little bottle, and she drank a couple of ounces from the bottle, and then she threw it all up. And it was just like, I just felt like I was doing everything wrong. And we had gone outside to the park, and I felt like there were these women that were judging me because Isla was just like crying, screaming. And I just felt like they were looking at me like, does this bitch know what the hell she's doing? It was just giving me that look like a girl. And I just felt this like judgment, and they probably weren't even judging. They probably just, yep, we've been there. We know it's,
Yeah.
but it was just, oh, I just remember that day so vividly. It was just horrible. And Isla threw up, and it was like she was choking on her throat. It was just, and I was like, what the hell have I done? I just made the biggest mistake of my life. I was like, I'm walking to the fire station, and I'm dropping her off at the fire station. I was like, I can't do this. And I called one of my best friends, Dominique, bawling, crying, like in the middle of a full-on breakdown. I can't do this. What was I thinking? Blah, 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 blah. And that's when I knew that something was wrong. And like, I had thoughts of either dropping her off at the fire station or throwing her off of my balcony. And that's when I knew, I was like, this is not good. So I'm glad that I had the awareness in that moment to call a friend. And I mean, I was probably on the phone with her for an hour, just bawling, crying. And so that's when I knew, I was like, okay, this is not right. This doesn't feel right. And so then I had a talk, I think like probably the next day, with my therapist. And then we got on a call with the psychiatrist, and I did all the testing and screening and came back. I had severe postpartum depression.
Wow.
So then it was at that point, it was like, okay, we have to make an action plan to get out of this cloud for the sake of me and the baby.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
This is the first I've talked about the
It's okay. This is important.
it was just so dark.
Yeah, it is.
It was just so dark, and it's like I had spent so much money and time and effort and energy to bring this beautiful little girl into the world, and then a weekend I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so grateful for my friend Dominique in that moment, because had she not answered the phone, I don't know. I don't know what could have happened.
I just want to
Sorry.
No, do not apologize. This is so important. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being authentic and vulnerable to share this, because so many people suffer in silence around postpartum anxiety, postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression. Like, those hormone changes after you have a baby are fucking real, man. They're so real. And unless somebody has been through it, It's really hard to explain. And I was talking to somebody who I'm really excited will be a guest on the show coming up here about this exact topic, postpartum depression. And she said to me in the screening call that we had, and this really stuck with me, was that you're both grateful and hitting the depths of despair at the same time, because one level of your brain that you should be like really grateful that you have this healthy baby, and then on the other side of it, like how you are like drowning and how you're feeling. And it just emphasizes how important that network is, because mothers really can't do it alone. We need a village. And I'm so grateful that your village was there for you. And this is deeply personal, and it's hard because you have gone through this whole huge process, and now it's what is happening to me. I've had people describe it as, I was in such a dark place, I scared myself, but I didn't know how to get out of it, because your hormones are changing really rapidly. Like, it's the equivalent of going from having 100 birth control pills in your system at once, and then 3 days afterwards, none.
Yes.
That hormone crash is no fucking joke. It's no joke. And where it takes you, I find, and again, this is anecdotal, right? Evidence based on my practice. But I find that my clients who have been through the ART process, meaning assisted reproductive technology, using hormones in a guided way to be able to guide the fertility journey, are actually more prone to postpartum depression, at least in what I've seen in my practice. And being a first-time mother, that must have been so scary, because you didn't have anything else to base it on, to compare it to.
Exactly. And luckily I had taken enough prenatal classes and stuff to be aware of certain things, but oh gosh, I didn't know that it would hit me. And I mentioned before, I had already been going to therapy, so I had already been dealing with depression and anxiety and all these other things. And I'd spent so much time in therapy before getting pregnant to help me with those things. But the weight of being a new parent, like you mentioned, all of these hormonal changes going through your body, the exhaustion, because you're not really sleeping. I wasn't eating. Like, it was just like crazy. I didn't expect it. I did not expect it at all. And I'm glad that I had conversations about it beforehand, so I knew what to expect. I'm grateful for the doctors. I remember, like, I showed up for my 6-week visit, had a really horrible morning with Isla that day. And I was a crying mess from the moment I stepped into the doctor's office. And they were like, yeah, you're not okay. And it's okay that you're not okay. We're here to help you. We'll give you all of the resources that you need. So I was so grateful. Again, the village, the support between friends, family, doctors. I don't know what I would have done without them.
How long did you feel like those symptoms had a grip on you before you started feeling like yourself again?
I want to say probably at least like that 4th trimester.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, it's probably that 4th trimester. Once I got over the hump and we kind of really started developing a rhythm. Once I started being able to be in a space where I could give myself grace,
That's so important.
it started to get better. There's still days that it's like,
And I don't have anyone to hand them to.
oh, that part.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. So when I started to realize that there's a rainbow, every day. It's not going to be peaches and cream. There are days it's harder than others, but giving myself grace has been the biggest thing. My apartment is a disaster. You can't really see it because I have the blurred background. But
She's at the tiny tornado stage?
listen, okay. I'm like, Isla, can we keep our mess contained? Can we just try to pick up? Let's try to tidy up. I'm a little behind on laundry. It's okay.
It is. It's totally okay.
It's just being realistic with myself and just knowing that I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can. Isla does not care. She could care less what the apartment looks like. She just wants to play, and she just wants to be up under mama all the time. Sometimes it's hard because I just want to pee by myself.
I witness you in this.
But it's what it is. Yeah, so that's just the mentality that I've had to embrace. I'm doing the best I can, and believing people when they tell me you're doing a good job. It's very easy to be like, thank you, but I could be doing this, or I could be doing that better, or whatever. But if you're doing a great job, and it's, you know what, I am. Thank you. And that's it, period. Don't try to find something that aren't excelling at or something. Just, you're doing a great job. Thank you, period.
That's a hard motherhood thing in general. Whether you're a single parent or not, in the early stages of my daughter's life, when I had her 13 years ago, I was a single parent for a while. And it's hard. Like, they go through that tiny tornado stage, and you look at your apartment and you go, especially when you're a type A person that likes to plan things. When you see all of the chaos and clutter everywhere, it's a lot. And and I remember when I had that moment, I was like, okay, Adrienne, she's just playing. She's being a typical kid. Nobody cares what this looks like. You get a load of laundry in every day. Sometimes you get it put away. Sometimes it's in the basket. Sometimes you don't get to take it out of said basket for several days.
3 weeks.
Yes. It could be that long. It could be less. And if I can't find it, it's probably in a basket. And you know what, girl? It's okay.
It's fine.
As long as she's happy and she's healthy,
yes,
she's well adjusted, you're doing all the right things.
Yes. And the other thing has also been being okay with taking time for myself, which is still a work in progress, but I'm a lot better than I was. So it's funny because I was just talking to my mom about this yesterday, because it's like, I'm going to go and buy myself clothes. I am tired of just wearing sweatpants and hoodies. I'm going to buy myself an actual shirt. And then I go to the store and I still buy everything for Isla, and I've still gotten myself nothing.
Yep.
And so no, I need to be better about doing for me. So go buy that outfit. Go get your hair done. Get your nails done. Although my nails right now are straight trash. I'm going to get them done. Before the week is over, they'll be done. And to just take that time for myself, just to get me to feeling like myself, because I've had to not learn the hard way, but yeah, I really can't show up for her if I'm not showing up for myself first. Because I think for all of us, when we become parents, our first instinct is kid first, you second.
Yes.
But I have to flip that. I have to put myself first. But to say that out loud sounds so fucking selfish. But it's not.
It's not. It's
Right?
so
And it's
important.
like I have to put me first. That way I can take care of her. And I have to be okay with that.
Yeah. That is such a beautiful thing that I want to emphasize and place emphasis on, because we have this expectation in our culture that mothers need to be martyrs in order to be good parents. And it's really bullshit. It really is. We do not have to be martyrs to be good mothers. This is like that whole, if the oxygen mask drops on the airplane, make sure you put your own on first before you help others. And it sounds counterintuitive, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you have nothing to give, you cannot show up for your child. And during my single parent stretch before I met my husband, that was something that I feel like I learned the hard way, because I did the sacrificial lamb thing, like quote unquote society expects us to do, right? Where your kid always comes first. And it's like, but I'm not showing her the healthiest, most well-adjusted form of me because I'm tired and I'm running on empty emotionally and physically. I haven't fed myself. I haven't showered. And showers should not be a luxury, people. They are a basic necessity.
Don't even get me on showers, because I'm like, if I could get in 3 showers a week, I'm winning. Okay?
Yeah.
It sounds crazy. I was like, what do you mean? Before I was like, what do you mean you didn't have time to shower? I'm like, I'm gonna be shower every day. What we gonna be like?
Yeah.
Baby, that postpartum BO hit different. Okay? I don't know what it is, what it was, what it knew. But that postpartum BO hit different, and she'd bathe every day. Me?
Yep. Yep. Oh, I deeply resonate with this.
Well, look at me now. I showered today.
Yeah, me too. Me too. This is what clean hair looks like, folks.
But it's just like those little things we lose sight of. And because we are just so conditioned to just pour into the kids and pour into the family, and we sometimes let ourselves go by the wayside. And
yeah.
So I'm a work in progress in making sure that I pour into me first. And some days are better than others.
Of course.
But yeah, like if I want to give Isla the best version of me, that's what I have to do. So a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine came over and she watched the baby for a few hours while I went and got a massage.
Beautiful.
It's the best 90-minute nap.
I'm jealous. I haven't had one of those in a very long time.
Like, I told her, I said, I'm a parent to a 10-month-old. I don't get to nap. So if I snore, I'm sorry.
Be prepared.
She was like, I get it. I understand. I was like, great. And then the massage was over. I was like, wait, the 90 minutes is up? Because that only felt like 20 minutes. They were like, no, that was 90 minutes. I was like, dang, it went by fast.
I know. When can we do this again?
Can we do this again? Wait. But I was so rejuvenated after that. So I was like, damn, I need to do that more often. Just take the time to just get a massage or get a facial. And it's crazy because while I was pregnant, I was maintaining that same level of self-care. I was going to acupuncture every week, going to the chiropractor, getting facials, getting massages, continued all of that while I was pregnant. And I had what people have said is probably like the easiest pregnancy ever. And then I had the baby and I just kind of stopped all of that. And it's no, I gotta get back. I gotta get back to those things. I gotta pour into myself.
Absolutely. It's so, so important. And pouring into yourself without the shame and guilt of pouring into yourself. And I mean, I sit here with my son 6 months old at this point, and I'm 41, and I get it. There are times where you're like, "Ooh, it feels like a lot to be able to do this thing for myself." But it's so critically important because you really can't pour from an empty cup. And the thing that I prioritized first was acupuncture for myself. And
it was the best thing I could have done during the course of my fertility journey.
Yes, I agree. Particularly as an older mother, I would never go through another pregnancy without acupuncture and chiropractic care. I was well adjusted, no pun intended, during my pregnancy also. And it was a chiropractic adjustment that finally got me to go into labor also. So I'm so grateful for both of those professionals that helped support me through my entire pregnancy. And I've been a little more lax with the chiropractic care, and my body's telling me. So these are the little places that in my postpartum, I started making that little bit of time for me. So at first, my son had to come with me, and God love my 13-year-old daughter. She'd come with and she'd hold the baby in case he needed to nurse while I was in the course of trying to have my first few acupuncture appointments. But I was so grateful for those moments. And then I started having a couple of chiropractic adjustments. And I'm like, you know what? If I can't get my hair done, or if I can't do this, or if I can't do that, at least I'm doing those two things that are helping my nervous system, that are helping me heal and to recover. And I agree with you. That first 12 weeks, or the fourth trimester, as you referred to it, not everybody's familiar with that term. The fourth trimester is the first 3 months after you give birth. And that is like a really critical healing period. If there's going to be imbalances, if there's going to be fluctuations, like that is the time frame you're going to feel the weakest. It's the time frame you're going to see the symptoms really creep in, if they're going to be there for the most part. I mean, you can still experience postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety 6-12 months after having a baby. You might not experience it in those first 3 months, but those mental pieces can come in at 6 months. So I just kind of want to put that out there for people. Like, really and truly, your body doesn't heal until you're about 2 years post. Postpartum depletion is a thing. So being able to put these kinds of self-care practices into motion and prioritize yourself, even if it just feels like little things. I got a shower today. Hey, girl, look at me. Little things like that are so critically important in terms of your whole process of healing and being able to show up for your ever-changing child, because they change so fast in that first year. And your body does too, really and truly. I mean, and that doesn't even touch on like the getting your body back culture. And God, we could do a whole episode about that, but it's ridiculous. But graciously, Lakia has agreed to come back for a couple other episodes, because I really wanted to dive into her journey to select a sperm donor, because that is a very important story that needs to be told, and talking about like the total cost and investment and how all of that shapes the IVF journey. So we're going to break it into a couple of parts. I'm sure, as you can tell from the length of this episode, we could talk for a very long time about this topic because it is so, so important. But if you want to leave our audience with a thought before we go to a part 2 in the not so distant future, what is that final kernel that you would leave people with?
Ooh, wow. I think it would be such a good one. So I work in sports, so let's throw in a sports little analogy. But life is going to give you some curveballs. It's all a matter of how you handle it and just having faith that you are going to get through the other side. So we talked about me having the plan. That plan, I succeeded in my goal of having a baby. It just, the lead up to it was very different, had that curveball. And so it's been a test of faith doing this and going through this journey. And so that's my thing, just continuing to press forward with faith. And so I'm very grateful for you to have this space, to have me come and talk about this. And as I'm like looking at starting my fertility coaching program, to just continuing the conversation and to just empower people during the course of their journey. But in order to feel empowered, you have to proceed with faith that it's going to work out the way it's supposed to.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So as you get started with this coaching program, we're going to make all of the links to all of the good stuff available in the show notes so that you can reach out to Lakia and participate in her coaching program if you feel called to do so through this episode. And you will hear and see Lakia again. I'm so grateful that she has agreed to share in depth other parts of this story because, like I said, I feel like we could talk about this all day. Thank you so much for your vulnerability, your authenticity, and for coming on the show and sharing your story with our audience. I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much again for having me and for again having this space. We need more spaces like this to feel open, to feel where I can show up as my vulnerable self. If I can just help one person listening today, then my journey would not have been in vain.
I love that. I feel like that's the theme song of my practice, Moon Essence, as well. So thank you again so much. And make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any more of the juicy parts of our upcoming conversations.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.